Hi YouTube. So today, like promised, I am going to be talking about my cancer story and my cancer journey. And this not only, I hope will help others going through it, but I mean, this helps me out as well. It's kind of like my video diary type thing, because I never really spoke about me having cancer. I never really let the world know, or didn't really post too much during this time, and I just kind of focused on me getting better. So before I get started, I want to thank everyone that has been there for me since day one. My parents, my brother, my wonderful husband, and all my friends, and my parents' friends as well. Um, they have helped so much, and there really are beautiful, compassionate people out there. And it's amazing just how much love and prayers I have received. So, we're first going to start off with the day I got diagnosed. Actually, no, we're going to start maybe a year before that. I had a bump in my groin area. It was like it started off about that big. Then like a year went by, and I would go get it checked out, and they would be like, maybe it's just like your hormones or an infection or something. So it wasn't until it got to the size of a grapefruit that they decided to do a biopsy. So they did an internal biopsy, so that they can remove the tumor and see if it was cancer or not. So during this time, it sucks because you're just like, what's going on? What do I have? Thank God I had a great doctor that understood how much it would have sucked to wait through a whole weekend not knowing my results. So I actually got my news over the telephone, and I do appreciate that. He didn't want me going through the weekend, not knowing. So I got the phone call, and he did say I had cancer. It was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and my whole life changed. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that means. And I remember the first thing that I asked, so vain of me, is, am I going to lose my hair? And he said, yes, you're going to be getting chemo, and you will lose your hair. So that kind of started it off for me as like, what the fuck? This is really going to be hard. I'm going to have to shave my head, and my hair's going to fall out, and I'm going to have to start all over again. It was just me being vain. I never thought like, oh, am I going to live? I thought about my hair, and it's sad to say, but I did. So I got diagnosed, and then that next week is busy, and you go to the hospital and you get lab results, and you have to get a port placed in. This is my second port. They removed my first port 6 months after I was in remission. So I'm going to probably keep this in for a long time. So I got my port surgery. Then I did the IVF procedure. And then when I was done with that, I did my first rounds of chemo. My first time having cancer, I did outpatient chemo, where I would go to the hospital and sit in the chemo room every 3 weeks for 6 months. And takes about 3 to 4 hours to get all your chemo done, pretty much. So during this time, I'm depressed, obviously. I'm lonely. Cancer is one of the most loneliest diseases to go through. I don't want to get emotional, but I'm getting stuck here, and like, where do I go from here? So I wanted to bring up the first time I had cancer. I was living in a legal state. I was living in Washington State, so I got to use medical marijuana during the time I had cancer. And this is going to make sense later on, but I didn't really feel the effects of cancer like I did this time without medical marijuana. I mean, I was able to eat still. I had appetite. My anxiety was down. I could sleep still. I was walking still. So I do want to say that I feel like every cancer patient should be allowed to use medical marijuana. Um, that's just what I want to get out the way because it's true. It was true for me. Um, During this time, I had my dog Xena, and everything happens for a reason, and I know she was sent to me. She was sent to me from God above, and she was sent to me to save my life, I think. I know. It's just too much of a coincidence. So my dog Xena, I started to notice that she was getting tired. She really didn't want to play anymore, and that's not her. She's like an American bully. She has tons of energy, and you'll see pictures of her. I started to know when she would walk that she would have like a big kind of like knot between her groin. And me and my mom got in the car and we went to PetSmart and we got tests, and we found out that my dog was diagnosed 2 weeks after me with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It is not treatable for dogs. During this time, she got worse and her tumors got just huge. It's like she was sucking mine out, and she was taking it for herself, and mine began to shrink. And I got through my chemo, and I got through that first time with cancer. It did eventually, when I got it re-diagnosed during this time at the Seattle Cancer Hospital, it was large B diffuse cell lymphoma. So that's what I got treated as this time. Thankfully, the chemo they gave me, which was R-CHOP, they thought I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it worked. It worked for a little bit. Fast forward 2 years later, in April, I went in. I kind of knew if you've been through this, you kind of know. Like I was getting tired. I was extremely fatigued, and I was always scared to touch my body after the first time I found my lump. But I knew I had something in my groin and my stomach. I could feel it. So I went to my oncologist and they ordered a PET scan, and I got called back into the waiting room, and he told me that it's back and it's aggressive, and we are sending you to UNC Chapel Hill so you can do inpatient chemo. Inpatient chemo was a lot more difficult. I had to stay up in the hospital for 3 days and get chemo. I had rice chemo this time, and pretty much in bed for 3 days, and you're getting chemo throughout your body. Thankfully, I had my mom, my husband, and my dad there. They were with me, and I couldn't have got through it without them. The second time when I was doing inpatient chemo, it's when I was really, really sick, to where I lost so much weight. I would have to get blood transfusions, platelet transfusions, hydration all the time. I got down to 113, and I'm 5'11". So I literally looked like a skeleton. All I could do was, when I would come home from getting chemo, is lay down. My mom would have to cook for me, and I couldn't do anything for myself, which was awful. Also, my husband, when I got diagnosed, he was in Afghanistan. And they actually sent a Red Cross to him, letting him know what I was going through, and so he actually got to come back. So that was awesome. He was there as well, but my mom went to most of my chemo sessions with me, just so he didn't have to, miss work as much. But so doing inpatient chemo at Chapel Hill was crazy. I just was not myself. I was weak. I was wheelchair bound. I couldn't walk. I was nauseous all the time. I couldn't eat. So every time I would get chemo, they would give me 3 weeks to recover. Those 3 weeks, it would take exactly about 3 weeks for me to recover, and then I would have to go back and get this chemo in my body. And I was so weak and so scared that, like, what if my body is not going to allow me to get this anymore? Like, I literally felt like I was dying. I probably was. My blood work showed it. My everything pretty much said that, yeah, you're not going to make it. And I would see it in people's eyes as well. And I saw it in my eyes, how they would look at me. But thankfully, I was able to get into remission 6 months later. And that was when we talked about a stem cell transplant. Since my cancer has came back twice, they're like, we want you to do a stem cell transplant using your own stem cells. So I did that. You have to be in remission to get a stem cell transplant. So once I was in remission, it quickly turned into like me being in the hospital every day trying to prepare for the stem cell transplant. And I will talk about the stem cell transplant in the other video. This is just my me talking about the cancer. There's such thing as a chemo brain, and that's kind of what I still have. But I want to talk about the fact that my dog Xena, she did eventually pass away, and I believe she saved my life. She took my cancer from me. And I feel like dogs are so special, and they just know so much. They can detect so much. And during cancer, so during that first time with cancer, I lost my dog, my best friend. I had to stop working. So pretty much with that comes depression. I no longer had my dog, no longer had a job. I didn't feel like I had a purpose. But I ended up getting through it. At present, I'm pushing on. There's no active cancer right now. I did my 3-month PET scan. I will have to do my 6-month PET scan, and that's coming up next month. And when you have cancer, it's like it's never really gone. It's always in the back of your head, like, do I have it or do I not? It's like I live my life through each scan that I have. And I'm just hoping that each scan is negative. So hopefully this next scan I will be clear as well, and I could just keep getting stronger and stronger. I'm gonna share some pictures with you guys as well, maybe in the beginning and in the end, of me during this process. The first time you could notice that it really didn't affect me, and then I began to look sicker and sicker this time around. So I just want you guys to know it was large B diffuse lymphoma. If anyone else out there has experienced this, please, comment below and let's talk, and let's share stories. So yeah, thank you for listening to this story.